Hi guys, welcome back to Mike Loves Fanfic. And where we left off right now is some more one shots. So we're doing this again. And let's see how we have done so far. Okay, so we've done Zero G, we've done spoilers, swords, random loot, that one, and that one, I believe. So yes, so they're 19. I read seven. Seven out of okay. Out of the 19 fics that I did, seven. I read seven. And today I'm reading this next fic called "You Got Me Like Space Pox." That will be my next fic for you guys. No, to read along. So let's find that fic, shall we? Let's find that. All right, right here. Right here. You got me like space pox. It is rated teen. It's canon divergence, so we have another canon divergence. So anything that was from that season is there. And it involves some sickness, some pining. Again, there's some many pinings in this one shot. It's a sick fic, so someone is getting sick. And there's some comfort, right? And then yeah, some comfort in it. Just feel soft, as you might consider it. All right, I'll give you guys the summary, and let's get started with this. Okay. All right, the summary. Keith has been around much since joining the Late Memorial, and maybe that's why Lance finds himself constantly watching, eyes drawn inexplicably to find a friend. Well, to the friend he never gets to see anymore. Friend he desperately misses but hates to admit it. On a joint mission with the Blade of Memora, Lance notices something is wrong. When Keith collapses in the middle of the fight, Lance is the first at his side. And when it turns out that Keith is sick with some sort of Gora virus and has to stay in the castle ship for a while, Lance is the one who volunteers to take care of him. Oof. And according to them, which is the author of the name, they said that it's somewhere around season three, over the course of season three, season four of Ultron. I mean, I don't know if they're right, but we'll see. All right, but if it's right, then make sure it's like fact check. We'll have to fact check if they're right. Okay. Okay. Without any further ado, let's get on to this bit. All right, here we go. You got me like space punks. Lance isn't really sure where the habit came from or when it started, but thinking back on it, he realizes he's kind of always had a tendency to stare. He's an observer. It's always been this way, watching others, recognizing mood swings, realizing tension, noting when conversations and attitudes shift, watching his siblings, his family, learning to adapt and change and shift depending on the mood present, learning to notice people so it could better adapt to being with them, to being liked, to being noticed, to be welcomed. He's not sure when he started watching Key in particular, but coincidence became curiosity. Curiosity became habit. He knows when he started, his staring wasn't instant, nor was it friendly. Eyes locked on the back of Keith's head in class, catching glimpses of his profile in the halls, glaring at him from across the mess hall, watching the furrow of his brows on the observational screen as he flew the simulators. His stomach twisted with something dark and sour, bitter acid on his tongue, fire in his chest. Twisted, corrupting, eating away at his insides, pulling his thoughts, jealousy, anger, irritation, longing to be him, to be in his shoes, to be his equal. Then Keith was gone, and there was a hole in his chest that he didn't like to think about. And when Keith came back, when they were whisked off to space, when they became teammates, that hole filled once again with a fire, but something had changed. He still stared. Head became instinct. Instinct became compulsion. His feelings were still there, but it was no longer a darkness blackening his chest, rather shadows creeping at the edges of his mind, often and easily ignored, because he was Keith's equal. And Keith's glanced up and softened, causing a fluttering in Lance's stomach and a squeeze in his chest. Then Shiv disappeared. Keith was poised to fall, standing on shaking ground that threatened to crumble, and Lance was there, to hold him up, to hold his hand, again pushed and forced at his back. He still stared, but something had changed. Compulsion became insight. Insights became understanding. Understanding became compassion. Then Keith left again, and that hole in his chest opened wide again. He didn't have time to focus on it, push it aside like he had before. There were plenty of things to keep him busy. Fighting in an intergalactic war would do that. He'd go through it until the hole's edges were softened and buffered, less sharp and aching. He doesn't see Keats as often anymore, but when he does, he finds that he still stares, finds his eyes returning to him constantly, again and again, always aware of where he is, even before he realizes it. And curiously, all of those dark thoughts seem to be gone. It feels a whole new barrage of things when he stares at Keith these days. And it's something he doesn't like to think too hard about, because something has definitely changed. So, given his habit of staring, of noticing all the small changes in Keith's expression and body language, Lance finds he can read him pretty easily. It's been a skill long in the making, and he doesn't realize just how well he can read Keith until he notices that something is definitely wrong. He sees in the way his posture sags just slightly. He can see in the bags under his eyes and the strange glassy quality to his gaze when he lowers his mask. You can see in the lines that mar his forehead and stand out the corner of his pursed lips. You can see in the way he avoids eye contact, the way his gaze unfocuses for brief moments. You can see the slight waver to his movements, to his balance. You can see the slight sheen of sweat, even when he's just standing still. Lance wants to ask what's wrong, but he knows by the way Keith squares his shoulders and sets his jaw, nodding sharply when given his orders, that he won't say anything besides insisting that he's fine. But Lance knows he's not fine. And given that Lance knows he's not fine, he finds himself watching Keith more closely than ever. They're on a mission with a blade, infiltration. Lions landed a ways away, paladins and blades moving in side by side, fighting in tandem. Lance watches from afar, fixed up on the perch, bare in its sniper rifle form, eye to the scope. He keeps a watchful eye over the skirmish below, but his gaze lingers on Keith. Truth be told, he likes watching Keith fight. He's fluid and dynamic, with just enough power behind his movements and just enough control. He's graceful. He's dangerous. He's a fire on the battlefield that can't be contained, swift and destructive. Just like the old days, Lance finds himself keeping a close eye on him. He has a tendency to dive headlong into the fray, and Lance has a tendency to keep enemies out of his blind spots. A team, working together. No words passing between them because they don't need them. After the first shot downs a sentry at his back, he glances up at him, eyes easily finding Lance's perch, even though he's pretty sure he never saw him climb up to it. Maybe he's just as spatially aware of Lance as Lance is of him. Lance can't see him smile behind his mask, but he feels it in the air between them. And then he's diving back into the fray, and Lance is watching his back. It's no real surprise when he's the first to see Keats falter. He sees the stutter in his step, the way his limbs seem to go heavy as he barely manages to dodge a blade. Lance takes the shot without thinking, giving Keith a moment to breathe. He doesn't recover. He falls to a knee, hand to his head, chest heaving unnaturally. Lance is already moving. He thinks he shouts Keith's name, but it's hard to hear over the sound of battle and the ring in his ears. He slides down from his perch, feet scrambling for traction as he hits the ground. Then he's running. Bear already back into rifle form. He shoots as he runs, weaving through the battle, an unstoppable current until he's at Keith's side. He tries to protest as Lance heaves him into his arms, but he's not in a very good state to. His breathing is erratic, face flushed, a thin sheen of sweat broken out over his skin when the mask falls away. His eyes are distant, barely able to remain open. Lance's heart squeezes, but now isn't the time to hesitate. He shouts at the others, and they cover him as he carries Keith out there. He's heavy, but Lance manages through pure strength of will and adrenaline. Okay. He makes it back to Red and throws himself into a seat, keeps selling into his lap as he reaches forward for the controls. Red's concern rumbles at the back of his mind, soft and dangerous. Feeling Lance as he sets his jaw, eyes hard as he pushes Red back toward the castle ship as fast as she can go. We're getting into starting off with the battle. I don't know what the battle are they referencing to. I think it definitely not focused on Zarkon no more because Lotor's taking over, but there's a lot of building up for the building up for the Core Empire. It's still going. But the Blade Memora, remember, Blade Memora has a separate team and they're against the Empire. The Blade Memora and the Lions that are working together for them to fight whatever this intergalactic war, and then Key all of a sudden just fell out of that little loop of we're in the middle of the war, and then he got shot out of the loop and he fell down. Doesn't know what to do. Well, now has nothing to breathe. He's having a hard time to breathe out, and yeah, I don't know what happened to Keith. He has a health problem, or we want to call that. So Lance has to take the matter into his own hands and rescue Keith from this the sickening. Strange, Coran says. Brow furrow and lips pressed as he looks over the scanner's readings. He lays on one of the beds in the med bay, mask and hood down, eyes squeezed shut and breathing erratic. What was that mean? Lance snaps. He hadn't meant to. No Coran looks at him. However, there's no sign of irritation or annoyance. Instead, just warm understanding and sympathy. Lance looks away, frowning at his gaze lands on Keith. It means that the console's database isn't familiar with whatever is plaguing Keith. It can tell he's ill, just not with what. So it's some crazy space disease? Lance asked, worried, straining his voice. The door slides open, and his head stands up. Before he realizes what he's doing, he stepped between Keith and the two blades who stepped into the room. It's ridiculous. And he focuses himself to relax. The battle's still going on. You can hear his teammate's voices thin and muted. Coming from the helmet, he has flesh under one arm. The two masked blades slow as they enter the room, both breathing hard. What happened? And while his mask remains in place, his stature and voice are easy to place. Cullivan. I'm afraid we don't know, Francis. Brows pinching as he looks back down the scanner in his hand. Cullivan reaches up to his neck, mask disappearing as he pulls back his hood. He takes a few steps forward, and Lance watches his face. He sees the moment something akin to recognition passes over his eyes. He sees the way his body freezes, hands shooting out to stop his spell blade from advancing. They both take cautious steps back, and Lance is already chasing after them. What is it? He demands, voice rising, straining. He glares, held to the back, refusing to break eye contact with the startled man. What's wrong with Keith? Lance, Corinne starts, but he cuts him off, pointing accused at Colin. He knows. The man shifts his weight, eyes dropping and head turning side to side. I do, and I'm afraid there's nothing we can do for him. Please, that's fine, Francis, all calm and reasonable. Lance can barely hear the past ring in his ears, can barely breathe past the tightness in his chest. Calvin holds up a hand in a saying gesture. There's nothing serious. or at least it should not be for him. For us, however, he shakes his head. See the blotches forming on his skin? Lance turns, eyes zeroing in on what he can see of Keith's face and neck. Eyes lingering on the rashes that have started to disappear. Small, mottled spots of dark red fur. It is a common illness among the Garo. Common and simple for the young. It passes easily with minor discomfort, and once it's gone, the body is immune to contracting it again. However, as in fully grown Garo, it can have much more severe ramifications. Lance blinks, understanding the clicking to place. Like the chicken pox, three pairs of eyes turn to him with varying levels of fear. He sends them a weak smile, waving a hand. Uh, never mind. Colvin's eyes linger on him for only a moment before turning to the door. Nevertheless, while he should be fine in a moment's time, we cannot risk bringing him back with us. It's a highly contagious disease, and we do not know who was exposed in their childhood. Cran nods, lines on his face reluctant not to let a smile. He reaches out, putting a protective hand on Keith's shoulder. We understand. We'll take care of him here. Thank you. Is all Colin says, for his hood and mask are backblaze. Both blades hurrying out of the room, an extra beat of urgency in their steps. Later, Lance realizes that he probably should have returned to the battle, but as it turns out, they managed just fine without him. Which he's glad. He doesn't think he would have been able to convince his feet to take him out of the med bay anyway. He doesn't want to think about what's changed. So we kind of get this understanding. There is like a virus, there is a disease, and it's so dangerous that they cannot do it. There are some most severe things that I'm afraid that that he cannot do no such a thing. Yeah, because he has a contagious disease and he will uh, never, but he'll have to recover for for a long, long time, right? For a while, for a while. But we'll see how that happened for everybody. No, he's all for shoving Kate into a healing pod and kicking his guard space pox right out of the system. Cran, however, has to go all reasonable and conclude that it's probably good to just let the disease run its course. So then at least Keith will be immune to it in the future when it could be far more deadly. Lance supposes that's good logic, but does he hate seeing Keith like this? Delirious, body covered in sweat, eyes bloodshot, dark rashes breaking out over his skin, lips twitching as his muscles contract and spasm. They finally compromised. Just a few takes in the pod to take the edge off, then straight to bed to wait out the rest of it. He hadn't meant to be there when Key woke up. He hadn't meant to linger even after Corinne hurries out to check in with the rest of the team. But it had felt wrong to leave Key alone, even if he was unconscious in the pod. So he had stayed. He had waited, lost in thought about everything but nothing at all, refusing to let any of his swirling thoughts fully stick. He hadn't intended to be the one to catch Kate as he falls out of the pod, but he is. He's there, on his feet, arms out and step before as Keith stumbles out. He lands heavily in Lance's arms, by the limb and limbs leaded. Lance stumbles a step, but braces himself, arms going around Keith to hold him up. Out of reflex more than anything, he starts rumbling circles in Keith's back. It's okay, buddy, he murmurs. Voice pitched over to me. I've got you. He crumbles to himself slowly, rousing from the deep slumber from the healing pod, made worse by the illness running rampant in the system. Lance knows the moment he realizes what's happening because he freezes, entire body going stiff and breath hitching inaudibly in his throat. Hands grip a fraction too tight on Lance's biceps. He straightens, pulling away, head still bowed and hair falling to hide his face. His balance wavers, and Lance is still there, grip around his waist firm enough to keep him from falling. Kate looks at him then, lifting his chin until Lance can see those gorgeous dark eyes. White's bloodshot and bags hang heavily beneath. His brow is furrowed, lips purse. Lance? He finally asked, voice hoarse and throat dry, causing his name to crack on his tongue. Lance offers him a small smile, just a bare quip says, Hey man, glad to see you awake. I start around as he moves his way back. Put another inch or two between them. Skip loosens, but he doesn't let go of Lance arms. What happened? You passed out mid-fight, dude. Keith's eyes snap to his back string. Lance grip on him tightens for just a moment, and the gesture he hopes is comforting. His smile turns lopsided as he tilts in. Always, I had your back. Something shifts behind Keith's eyes. Minute changes in his expression, and for once, Lance can't read it. Or maybe he can, if the shifting warmth cooling in his chest is anything to go by. No matter, straightens just a fraction. Pull his shoulders back as he clears his throat. Anyway, uh, Colin says you have like his brow throws, lips pressed to the sofa. Actually, he can't say what you have exactly, but it's like Galra chickenpox. A lift of Keith's brows. Galra chickenpox. Lance shrugs, lifting a hand from Keith to wave it out aimlessly. Basically, something like a mild rash of flu when you're young, but it gets dangerous when you're older. But once you have it, you're immune to it. So we decided it's probably best if we let it run its course. But Coleman isn't sure who in the blade has had it or not. So you're castle bound until you're better. He flashes back the borders of the grid. So welcome home, samurai. He exhales sharply. Somewhere between the hop and the snort, he looks away. Lance knows he's aiming for nonchalance. There's something there that makes his heart ache. Great, he mumbles, pulling away from Lance's grip. He hates to let go, but it does seem to immediate danger of falling. The silence between them is far too thick, far too tense. Lance doesn't like it. He feels like two steps back from where they have been. So he reaches out again, laying a hand on the back of his shoulder, intent on guiding him toward the door. Let's get you to your room so you can rest. He doesn't know anything about guard chickenpox. The kid looks exhausted, and sleep always does a sick body good. He shrugs off his hand, straightening as he sends Lance a glare that's far too weak and without any real heat. I don't need help walking, Lance. His words don't sound clipped or sharp, just exhausted and heavy. Lance pulls back his hand, holding both up for me. All right. I just thought you looked a little wobbly there. And I know coming out of the pot isn't exactly I'm fine. Keith grits out, already heading for the door. He only gets a couple steps before he's stumbling, pitching forward as his legs don't work like they should. He manages to catch himself, but he puts a hand to his forehead, squeezing his eyes shut and holding his other arm out. Lands there in a second, wrapping the arm around his waist and pulling one of his arms over his shoulders. He turns to him, opening his eyes into a weak glare, lips pursed into what they can only be about. Looks like he wants to fight you, but the beat is already making his shoulders slump. Waits and leans into Lance. Not a word. Lance just grins, eyes twinkling at the corner of it. How's he going to say anything? He was. He totally was. But he isn't feeling too great. So he'll give him a break this time. When they get to Keith's room, he shrugs out Lance's grip, hands the frame of his door and to hold himself up. Lance hovers in the open doorway, weight shifting and hands fidgeting. His eyes glance everywhere, from the odd emptiness of Keith's room, the hallway he stands in, to the boots of his suit as he idly stubs his toe against the metal of the floor. He wants to stay, to make sure Keith is alright, to make sure he has everything he needs. It's the right thing to do. He'd do it for anyone. Growing up with siblings and nieces and nephews has drilled it to instinct. Take care of those who can't take care of themselves. But before he can say anything, he is stepping into his room, casting a glance over his shoulder. Thanks, Lance. He says something. There's a storm in his eyes. A storm that makes Lance's stomach sink even as it makes his pulse race. But then the door is slammed shut, and Lance is alone in the hallway. For just a moment, he had hoped that maybe something had changed. Okay, so yeah, they are walking down to the hallway so that uh, Keith just woke up, and then Lance explained to them about the little disease, the gallbladder chicken pox, as Lance would point to it. So yeah, he explains everything about that. Keith is now stuck to the castle, and now he has to made his way to his room, to recover and to get him some rest. Because it's not good to get up and being sick and all the times. Because if anyone feels sick, actually really sick, maybe it's time to call in from work and just tell them that I won't be able to make it because I will maybe have a little bit feeling under the weather. Because I probably doing you, but I might be feeling under the weather. But sometimes I might have to feel myself under the weather and not get up until I fully recovered. So that's the reality of it. Despite the fact that every damn nerd in his body is hyper aware of the fact that Keith is, once again, on the ship. And despite the fact that his awareness zeroes in on any and every sound foresight to him. And despite the fact that the twisting, riffing worrying is telling him to check up on Keith's damn near constantly, Lance manages to resist the urge to hover. As it turns out, he's not the only one feeling the need to do so. Once the team is made aware of the situation, everyone seems fidgety, apparently crease in their brows. Words, maybe we should check up on Keith. And do you think he needs anything? Matter between them. But Keith makes it very clear that he doesn't want to be babied. He doesn't want their worry or their care. He makes this clear by glaring at anyone who gives him a little pity and suddenly moving about the cast like he doesn't look like a dead man walking. The only person he allows into his room is Shiro. It's never for long. Shiro always returns to them with a wry smile and a shrug of his shoulders. Keith will be Keith, and there's not much they can do about that. Lance just knows as well as anyone that pushing the matter would just make Keith pull back more, make him angrier. And Lance doesn't really want that anger directed at him. So it keeps from hovering, but that leads to other complications. Like the constant balance of his foot when he's forced to be still, the picture of his fingers, restless and nervous, the heightened sense that make him feel like he's hyper aware of every damn sound and shit. And most annoyingly, an inability to sleep. So that's how I find himself in the kitchen, hand through doors mid yawn, intent on getting a quick snack to quell his rumbling stomach, only to find Keith collapsed on the floor. Whoa, whoa, dude! He snaps away, eyes wide as he hurries across the room, nearly tripping on his own slippers. Keith, buddy, man, you okay? He says, dropping his knees next to Keith. He slumped against one of the kitchen cabinets, legs sprawled out in front of him, arms slipped at his sides. He slouched low, neck at an odd angle, and head lolling forward. Lance reached out, face gently touching Keith's cheeks, his jaw. He rouses, head lifting and eyes blinking blearily. Eyes, his eyelids look heavy, bags under his eyes dark, the visible skin on his face, neck, and arms part is paler than normal, spotted with small misshapen blotches that range from about dark reddish purple. They look almost like bruises, and makes Lance's stomach roll. Lance? Keith's voice is raspy and hoarse. Sounds slurring like he doesn't really have control over his tongue. Lance frowns, lifting his hand to press it gently against his forehead. His skin is clammy and sticky. Hey, buddy, don't worry. I'm here. Keith says for close for a moment. I'm not worried. Leans to Lance touch. A soft hum from his throat. Your hand's cold. Probably because you're burning up. Lance says, pulling his hands back. Keith's eyes flicker open, looking for all the world like it takes far too much energy to do so. Lance fixes him with a stern stare. What are you doing here, dude? You should be in bed. Keith looks at him for a moment longer, blinking slowly. Then looks away, eyes dropping to the floor as his lips press his mouth. He licks his cracked lips. Was thirsty, most hungry. Lance Rodriguez, you weren't at dinner. It's not a question, but Keith winces, shoulders hunch a little in shame. Lance's eyes narrow. Have you eaten anything today? I had breakfast. Keith, he sighs, closes his eyes to pinch his nose. You have to eat if you want your body to heal. I know, comes the grunt, but he has the decency to sound abashed. Lance sighs again, pushing himself to his feet. He had been resigned to letting Keith do his own thing, taking his venomous intent to push people away to heart. But you know what? Screw that. Alright, up you go. Keith just stares at him blankly. Blago slowly, lips parted slightly, and brow pinched in surprise. Lance rolled his eyes, reaching down. I said up, my moral boy. What are you doing? He asked, some suspicions and cautions, but takes Lance's hand away. What does it look like? I'm helping you. Pulling him to his feet proves to be a bigger struggle than Lance anticipated. He's weak, far weaker than it seems like he wants to admit. If the blush on his cheek is anything to go by the time they get him to his feet, he's bringing his labor and wreck. I don't need help. Lance snorts. Well, too bad. You're getting it. Now, come on. He maneuvers Kate around the kitchen aisle, settling him in the chair that he had dragged into the sit in while keeping Hung coming. He collapses more than sits, but Lance decides not to comment. Harry looks more relieved to be sitting again, but his expression is cautious as he watches Lance move around the kitchen. What now? He asks slowly, exhaustion hanging on his words. If those lights under his eyes are anything to go by, he hasn't been sleeping well either. Lance shrugs with one shoulder, already rifling through their food source. Now I'm gonna put together the best midnight snack you've ever had, and you're gonna sit right there and keep me company. Then you're going straight to bed, Bossy. There's a strange edge to his voice. When glance over his shoulder, he can see the small smirk covering Keith's lips. He grins, holding a spatula at him. Damn right. Now, how do you feel about space pancakes? A quick brow. In the middle of the night, erased brow return. Is there any better time? You're so weird. Shrug. Love it or leave it, Mullet. He's a quiet companion, but Lance doesn't mind. He dozes in the seat, occasionally sipping from the water pouch Lance put in front of him, leaning his head against folded arms on the counter. Lance hums to himself, sitting under his breath as he does his best to emulate Punk's improvised pancake recipe. He hadn't intended to go all out like this. The kid hadn't had dinner. And the soft, grateful smile he gets when he slides a stacked plate in front of him is totally worth the effort. Well, if you can't do it by yourself, you always have somebody to take care of you. Because if you're sick, somebody else has to take care of you. Because when I was a little kid, yeah, when I had like a fever or a very hot temperature, my mom always taking care of me. Because my mother is the very closest thing I ever did, and I really loved her. And sometimes we all have a little struggling and kind of ramble, but we always care for each other, and that's why we love it. And that's how it. The exact same thing for Lance and have been taking care of someone on the teams because Keith is the closest person that he'll ever have to take care of. Well, he cannot stand on his own. This is never gonna do it. It's not going to work when you're sick and you get out so to get yourself cured. No, let someone else do all of that one for you. Lance has to do everything that he can to make sure that Keith's okay, sure he's eating well, and all that stuff. The next day, Lance makes Keith shower. It's far longer process than anticipated. Keith says that doesn't need to, and Lance stands his ground firmly, refusing to leave his room until he agrees. It's a battle of wills, and luckily Keith's far too exhausted and drained to fight for long. And Lance has a history of intimidating sick family members into doing what they should. You don't need to come with me, Keith grumbles as they trudge through the hallways. Arms crossed over his chest and shows slump. His eyes remain fixed on the door. Lance shrugs, hands to his face. I don't trust you to run up the second I turn my back. He turns, flashing Keith a grin when he finds him sheepishly looking away. That's exactly what you're gonna do, isn't it? No. Keith, I don't need a shower. You do, dude. You're gross, Keith scowls. I'm just going to analyze this by the end of the day. He doesn't sound too happy about that little bit of business. Naturals. But it'll make you feel better now. Hygiene's important, dude. Whatever. Lance waits outside the door into the shared bathroom. He'd go inside, but he decides to give Keith some semblance of privacy. So he fixes Keith with a stern stare and threatening finger, and Keith just rolls out before disappearing into the room. Lance waits in the hallway, leaning against the wall with one hand in his pocket, utterly flickering through his phone. Beyond the door, you can hear when the water from one of the showers starts up, and a small smile graces his lips. Keith takes his time, which seems a little strange for him, but Lance doesn't mind waiting. Then he hears a clattering of bottles to the floor and the distinct sound of the body hitting the tiles, followed immediately by a grunt and groan. He doesn't call for Lance, but he does need to. Lance through the doors in the moment, phone shoved back in his pocket, hurries to the stall with the wall for a minute. Keith? No, sorry. Keith? The soft phone. Setting his jaw, trying to regulate his breathing. He pushes back the doors in the stall. Keith is on the floor, body collapsed and sprawled beneath the spray. His hat propped up against the wall, like he had tried to stand and had given up. Lance keeps his eyes fixed on his face as he assesses the situation. His brows are furrowed, eyes squeezed shut, expression twisted and lips parted as he pants. Out of the corner of his eye, you can see the rest of Keith's body, just covered with those odd mottled purple splotches on his arms. He gulps, threading his eyes away. Steam. There's a lot of steam in here. Water obviously far too hot. God damn it, Keith! He mumbles, reaching for the towel. He had perched on the rack outside the stall. He does his best to skirt around the spray of water to turn her off. Once that's done, he crouches low, wrapping the towel around Keith and breathing a sigh of relief through his nose as he does so. It's not like he doesn't like what he sees. It's just, yeah, that's time. He wraps up Keith as best he can and heaves the boy into his arms, cradling him against his chest. Keith leans against him, wet hair plastered into his face and neck, soaking through the shoulder of Lance's shirt. He doesn't mind. Dead weight, Keith is heavier than he anticipated, but he makes do. He stumbles just as he adjusts, nearly slipping on the floor and having to press his shoulder to the wall to keep balance. Once he's adjusted, he pushes off, carrying Keith back to his room. Keith's eyes flutter open shortly after they leave the steamy air of the bathroom behind. Chest breathing in the crisp, clean air in big gulps. He doesn't say anything, but his body shifts, curling slightly more in on himself, more into Lance's chest. His head shifts to further tuck his head beneath Lance's chin, and therefore his view. Hair forms a veil on his face, and Lance smiles, allowing himself just a moment to enjoy the feeling of Keith in his arms. Do you at least manage to get clean before you passed out? Shut up. So yeah, this is way, way more serious than I thought it would be because they were standing in the shower and Keith likes to take a shower himself, but all of a sudden he passes out and then Lance has to go back to the bathroom and you saw Keith lying down. Oh, that's not good. That is not good. And it's very contagious around that on his neck and his face. It's definitely not good. So Lance has to take care of that one for all that thing. I'm really sad. I'm really worried about Keith so much because he's really worried about people who are been around and try to take care of somebody. But when somebody collapses, it's like, oh, you just hit like a sour note on that piano. That's what I felt like when that happens. that's that's more of a panic, and I should rescue somebody. But that's how it feels. And where you think you're going? Lance draws, arms crossed over his robe, hip cocked out to the side, one of his lion slippers tapping silently on the floor. He stiffens, shoulders rising his ears. He turns slowly, eyes wide like a deer caught in the headlights. When he meets Lance's approving stare, his lips purse. He lifts a little, raising his chin, defiant spark in his eyes. I'm just going to train? No. Lance raises an eyebrow. Nice slow. No? Yes? So that's why you're standing outside the door, the train deck, with your knife strapped to your back? I always keep my knife on me. Even when you sleep? Yes. He says it like it's obvious. Lance brows crease in genuine surprise. And you call me weird? Key just shrugs. Lance sighs. Alright. Nope. No. No way. You're not trying right now. Key face balls scout. But nope. I can't sleep. Too bad. Back to bed. Lance steps up to him, putting himself between Keith and the training room door. He makes showing motions with his hands, knuckles pumping and fluttering against Keith till it takes a step back. You can't tell me what to do, Lance. Lance goes, you're obviously not going to take care of yourself, so I got to do it for you. I never asked you to. You didn't need to. At that, Keith blinks, and Lance can see surprise softening into something else. Something that has shivers running down his spine. Finally, Keith huffs, turns on his heel, shows something with the feet. Fine. They walk back into their rooms together in companionable silence. They stop outside Keith's door. Lance staring at him pointedly. He refuses to budge until he sees Keith go inside. Keith, however, just stares at it, expression sagging in exhaustion and resignation. I wasn't lying when I said I can't sleep, he said softly. Let's for a moment. I know, Keith says with a curious look, and Lance shrugs. The bags under your eyes speak for themselves. Keith shrugs. Lance hates seeing him like this. Hates seeing him so miserable and defeated, without that spark that he knows and loves. It's a vulnerability he's not used to seeing from Keith. It kicks his instinct to protect into high gear. Maybe I can help. The offer is out in the open before he has a chance of really being it through. He gives him a curious look. One eyebrow raised, and then just shrugs, stepping forward as the door opens, disappearing into a room. After a brief moment of hesitation, which Lance has to mentally slap himself, still his core and his heart, trying to make his pulse slow down and his breathing regulate, falls after. He collapses onto the bed without much preamble, leaving Lance standing awkwardly in the middle of the room. The key doesn't look awkward, or nervous, or hesitant. It just looks tired and desperate. That pushes Lance into action. Before he sees the school over, sitting on the bed with his back to the wall, left her shut. Come on, he says, and his eyes. He gives him a blank stare, lips pursing slowly in Brownsboro. Lance sighs, rolling his eyes as he passes Sasuke. Just trust me, alright? Put your head on my lap, he says to him, biting at his bottom lip and eyes darting around the room. But there's something in expression, an eagerness and willingness they can't quite hide behind his hesitancy. Finally, he scoots over, tentatively laying his hand on Lance's thigh. Lance wastes no time letting his fingers dive into Keith's hair, stroking through it, gently detangling the silken strands. He brushes the hair from his face, letting fingers carve through it in long, persistent movements. A sigh leaves Keith's lips, eyes squaring closed as his whole body seems to sink into the bed, tension leaking out of him all at once. He humps in his throat, and Lance can feel it against his leg. A small spot curves as his lips as his other hand moves to Keith's back, rubbing gentle and constant circles into his back. And then he sings, softly under his breath. Soft sings in Spanish and English. The songs he used to sing to his nieces and nephews when they curled up in his bed after a nightmare, or curled in his lap when they couldn't sleep. He keeps his movements consistent and gentle, singing until his lips and throat felt dry, until Keith's breathing evens out and his body slumps further as he sleeps. And then he keeps going because he doesn't know when Keith will let him touch him like this again. He has to observe Earth to make it last as long as he can, until sleep tugs at his own eyes and his hand stills, fingers still tangled in Keith's hair. And Lance will always be there whenever he's in somewhere in trouble. Lance is gonna be there and get rescued because the closest person for Lance to do the first thing he will to rescue is Keith. Keith will be definitely the number one. So that take care of Key while everybody else will continue to off the war or somewhere like that. But that's how this this story would go because Finally, Lance wanted to offer to just be help because Lance will always be there for Keith if Keith is into some trouble or get sick, like this story. Lance will always be there, 100%. So yeah, Lance is a really uh, nice guy to just being taken care of. So that's a little known fact around. Things go surprisingly smoothly after that. Lance shifts easily to the role of caregiver and he stops fighting him so much. That isn't to say he stops completely, but he gives in a lot quicker. He still doesn't like the looks the others gave him and doesn't react well when they try to take care of him. But he's given up on fighting Lance and things. He ends up spending a lot of time with Keith because of it. He needs a lot of sleep and refuses to do so unless Lance is there. So every morning, after insisting that Keith take a shower and escorting him to the kitchen to make sure he eats properly, Lance walks him back to his room, hovering like a hawk and ready to catch him should he fall again. He glares at him, bites a weak protest, but Lance can't tell if he doesn't mean them. You can read Keith better than that. After a long Keith sleep, he slips out of bed and returns to his team. He trains with them. He walks through the plans. He gives his 2 cents the way he should. But all the while, his mind is back in Keith's room on the sleeping figure, hoping he's alright. Maybe he's being paranoid. Maybe he worries too much. But he's found Keith collapse far too many times for comfort. Whenever he slips away to help Keith, the team gives him outlooks. Ones that range from surprise to curiosity to understanding to pride to something far more suggestive. He ignores them for the most part, eager to slip away. They let him go. Keith's made it clear that he doesn't mind Lance's help, so they're not about to pull him away from that. He keeps Keith company and they talk past the time. They talk like they haven't done in months. They talk more than they ever have. Lance talks about what's been happening while Keith's been gone. All the behind the scenes things in the castle doesn't come across in mission reports. Eventually, Keith opens up about his time with the Blade more, and Lance listens with rapt attention. And in the dark hours of the morning, they talk about how they feel about the roles, about what's been going on, about things that hurt to say in the light of day, and that they're afraid to admit to themselves. For the most part, Keith's illness progresses much like flu. He has moments where he has trouble keeping his foot down, and despite his protests, Lance stands there with him, holding his hair back as he retches. He has fits in his sleep, but Lance is there to help soothe him. His body has moments of getting too hot, and Lance sits by with a cool, wet towel to put on his forehead. When his rashes start itching, Lance slaps his hands away, ignoring the way his chest flutters, at the way Keith pouts, and the way his stomach flips when he helps rub cooling ointment into Keith's skin. For what Lance can tell, Keith hates it. Hates all the attention and hates needing it. He often gets a flush across his cheeks that Lance is sure is from embarrassment instead of sickness. But he deals with it with little complaint. He starts leaning to Lance's touch, sticking it out in a way that makes Lance think that maybe he hates being sick, but doesn't so much hate Lance's part in it. And that makes something come alive inside him. Something twisting and riffing with a pleasant warmth that Lance has tried for so long to keep stamped down. Something that terrifies him as much as it exhilarates him. A fire he fears feeding, but one he can't help but keep burning. He has taken to sleep in Keith's room. It's better to keep an eye on him. And more often than not, he's too hard to leave once he's saying Keith to sleep. He's He tried to sleep on the floor, deciding on what would be more appropriate and comfortable for Keith. But Keith wouldn't have it. He stared at Lance, hurt in his eyes and the power of his lips until Lance found himself crawling back up into his bed. Keith's body was overheated, sticky and wet, and all around uncomfortable to be next to. That until Lance was rolling him in close and letting him crawl to his side. And although it ends up being a surprisingly pleasant couple of days, he doesn't stay sick forever. His symptoms slowly lessen. Darker splotches fading to the light's violet. The bags under his eyes start to fade. His eyes look far more alert without the haze of drowsiness and dizziness. They keep their habits and patterns, but it's clear that he's getting better. And when it gets better, he'll have to leave. Lance fears the hole that he'll know will open up in his chest when Key leaves again, because something has changed between them. Okay, so over the course of days happening, Lance is now responsible for all of it, and then taking teams to make sure all the monitoring heat and some other stuff that they're dealing with. So Lance has been there. So towards the end, Lance has been close to Heat for so long that you want to have to sleep next to him. It's kind of to make sure that he feels better and he's okay. He's doing everything he can to make sure he's back on track. It's awesome. So let's get on to the end and see how it turns out. When Keith's door slides open and he walks out, fully dressed in his blade uniform, looks startled to find Lance leaning against the wall next to his room, hands in his pocket and one foot propped up on the wall behind him. Lance keeps his head to the back, eyes on the ceiling, but he hears Keith's steps falter, and he can see his hesitation out of the corner of his eye. He tilts his head to the side, a lazy grin session his lips. You were gonna leave without saying goodbye, weren't you? Keith's skin is smooth and rash-free, and it just makes his lights blush much more noticeable. Looks away, whispers. I was on my way to the bridge to tell everyone. And Lance believes him. He can tell he's telling the truth, but he's been watching for so long, he knows all about Keith's tendency to just disappear. He just wanted to make sure he got a goodbye. Or maybe he just wanted a few more moments alone with him before he leaves. He nods his head down the hall, pushing up the wall. It's golden. He falls to the step beside him, and they fall in silence. Silence between them is nothing new. It's not special or shocking. Silence is something they had since the beginning. Lance has never liked it, but it's always been there. But now, after their day spent together, hearts open in dark shadows of Keith's room. He hates the silence even more. This silence isn't companionable nor is it comfortable. It's awkward and tense, and Keith's eyes are fixed ahead of him. Everyone will be sad to see you go, he says, clearing his throat and breaking the silence, like he always does. Giving Key a hand into conversation he knows Key doesn't like starting on his own. The huffing is subtle, but Lance catches it. Sure. Lance looks at him, brows furrowed and lips for a second. They will, says firmly. You're a part of this team, dude. Even if you aren't flying a line right now, you're one of us in your family. And I don't know about you, but I personally prefer when the family's together. Keith's eyes flicker to him for just a moment before shifting away. The smile that lifts the corner of his lips is small, barely there, lifts his cheeks more than does his mouth. Elaine's used to watching, and she said, it's been nice being back here. Lance grins, playfully bumping Keith's shoulder with his own, making two of them stumble step. Even if you were sick off your butt for the entire time? Keith chuckles softly. Yeah, even then. They stop outside the door to the bridge, side by side, neither of them making a move to step closer. Lance inside twists, nausea as his pulse races through his veins. His stomach sinks, heart's in his throat. He doesn't want to say goodbye. He doesn't want things to change. He likes this. He likes what they've been building. He doesn't want Keith to go. Then Keith sighs, turns to face it, and Lance tilts his head, eyebrow raised as he looks at him. Keith's eyes are on his, beautiful and dark. Spark behind them sends shivers racing through him. His face sets in determination. Lips purse as he lifts his chin. Lance's breath itches. I just want to say thanks. He says like he's stepping into battle. Like he's spent time building this up. He says it like an attack, an aggressive strike before stepping immediately onto the defense. It's so key. Then Lance finds the knots and stomach easy, melts in the way as his lips pull up into his mouth. It was no problem, man. He turns evasively. Try not to be a stranger, yeah? I like having you around. And the mission comes easier than he thought it would, like a rush from his lungs, a sigh, a something he barely dares to think relaxes out of his chest. It's knowledge. It's not a declaration or anything, but it's the meaning behind it that makes it powerful. The subtext. All things left unsaid but linger heavily between the words. And judging from the shift in Keith's expression, the way the lines around his mouth relax, the way his shoulders droop, tension around his eyes smoothing out as his gaze softens. He gets it, understands. Maybe, maybe Keith is just as good at reading Lance as Lance is of him. And then Keith stepped forward, hand lifting to grab the back of Lance's neck, pulling him forward in a quick movement that's fluid and surprisingly firm. He meets Lance halfway, pressing warm and chapped lips to the corner of Lance's mouth. He misses, or maybe it was calculated, a diverting of the intent before he could follow through. Maybe it was just meant to be a tease. Lance doesn't know, and after only a second, he's pulling back, stepping away, smile small and eye special, uncertain, nervous, and Lance surges forward, hands resting to cup Keith's face, fingers diving into his hair as he lifts his chin. He tilts his head, sliding their lips together fully, feeling Keith's mouth against his, in exactly the way he's been craving. A desire that he's kept buried for so dang long, scared to let it into the light of day. Then Keith's hands are on his forearms, but not to push him away, rather to hold on to ground himself. Then Keith is melting under him before pushing forward, pushing into the knees more firmly, lips sliding deliciously against Lance. Lance breathes him in, tastes him, files it all away, and commits it to memory. When they pull away, they don't go far, close enough that he can still feel Keith's soft hands against his lips, bending out across his cheeks. He searches Keith's eyes, finds things there that reflect the same kind of exhilarating fear that he feels. Sees the excitement, sees the spark, sees the reflection of the fire he feels burning bright in his own chest. They don't say anything, but they don't need to. They both feel it. Something has changed. And there you have it, guys. That is the end of Gummy Like Space Pox, or that's what it's called. Yeah, Gummy Like Space Pox. That's it. And now they're feeling better. They just want to say goodbye, and or they have to say goodbye. They're doing one more thing, and that's yeah. Everybody knows what we're seeing next. It's just they're in for a kiss, and that's all you have to know. All you need to know. So we have done 8 of the fix and 8 of the fix. So next week we're going to have a NSW and another pick. Before that, I'm gonna have to share this one to see how far we've been reading this. All right, so we got the like G's done, the spoilers done, the space box done, the swords, the red and blue, Vegas lights, the pining, and like, comment, subscribe. So we've covered 7, 12. So we only need chapters 3 to 6 here and 13 to 19. So after all the 19 one shot that I read 8. 8 out of 19. So we're down to 11 more. We're down to 11. Okay, cool. I'm going to clear this one. Now I'm going to spin the wheel. Remember, here are all the 11 bits that I still have to read. So it's time for me to pick out which one. All right, here we go. Again, I have to spin this. They're in no particular order. I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read every single bit down the line, but they're in no particular order. So I don't know. I don't know which pick should I pick. All right, here we go. Whoa. Okay, Cupid's Fall is the next pick that we're reading. That removes it. So where is it? Here, chapter 4. Oh, okay, it's a Cupid now. We're focusing on the Cupid, and it's the key. Key will be as Cupid. There's gonna be pining again, and then Cupids are gonna be reincarnated human souls. Oh, wow, that's a little different. This is a AU now, and it's Cupid. So that's different. This is gonna be very different. So we're moving different pace, different kinds of pace right now. Okay, so that's the and this is the regular one shot, just so NCW. Now let's get on to the NSW. Okay, so we've done Blizzard, we've done um of Needs and Desires, and I've done Pill King of Fools, the first part. Yeah, that's all. I don't think there's any other thing. So right now, so they're 10 fixed, right? The 10 NSW thing. There 10 NSW one shots. I read 3 of them, so there are 7 fixed that I have not read. So okay, let's get on to the wheel. There's another wheel for it. I'll be right back. So yeah, I only read Blizzard. I only read 3, 7, and 10. That's it. Those are the only ones I read now. NSW. So now I'm gonna pick. Now I have to pick one of the 7. So ready? Let's go. Whoa. Oh. Oh. So it's Rip Jeans. Rip Jeans, the next one. And fix. So that is number 9. Oh, okay. So this is again post canon. So this is after what happened, and then new relationship happening. There's gonna be some, yeah, that, and thighs. Oof, we're about to get into some thigh area. As I don't know what I'm gonna do about this. Okay, so that's the next one. Rib jeans will be the next one, and then the next one, that will be the SW one. And then the one shot I'm gonna read next is the Cupid's Fall. Okay, that is all. Yeah, that is all for this video. I will see you next week for the NSW and the regular shot. Okay, bye everyone.